everyone, it's Carrie. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the 5 cards, 1 kit featuring the Scrapping for Less For the Love of Pets card kit. And we're going to start off by doing card number 1. This is the stamp set that has the Newton's Nook set in it. And I think this is such an adorable set. You'll probably hear the word adorable in this tutorial a lot, but it is. And so all of the coloring that I am doing, I have done off camera just to save some time in the video because the video will be long. But I have gone ahead and colored the images onto this piece of white cardstock and just die cut that out with a wonky stitched square die. And I wanted to go ahead and paper piece the little dog's handkerchief around his neck. So I used some of the pattern papers in the kit and to do that, and just to add just a little bit of extra something to the little doggy's handkerchief. And it gives the little extra pattern, and it just adds to the overall look because obviously the patterns match. So I've gone ahead and done that, and I think it just really brings them to life. So you can see how well that comes together there. Now I'm going to go ahead and I chose this pattern here, which I absolutely love. It's probably one of the favorites that I found in this pack. So I'm adding this, and I just cut that down to just a little bit to add a little bit of a white border around my card base there. Now I'm going to take one of the journaling cards that came in the kit with the paw prints, and I'm going to add this kind of like at a diagonal to my main colored piece. Before I do that though, I'm going to add my sentiment, and I'm going to stamp that down with some black ink, and then just kind of stamp that down, and then I'm going to adhere these two pieces together. And I think out of all of the cards that I made in this video, the first one that I've made was actually my favorite. So I'm going to kind of eyeball this and make sure that that's how I want the layout. And it is. So I'm going to add some liquid glue on the back. And then I'm going to also pop this up onto the card to give it some dimension, because it is a fairly simple and design card. So adding dimension to your cards always gives it that extra something to the overall design and makes it pleasing to the eye. So I'm going to eyeball that and then go ahead and add that dimension, and then take off the papers off the back and then put that into place. So if you're interested in this kit at all, I believe there's still some available. I will have everything as far as links of where you can find the kit and the 2 options that you can get linked below in the description bar area. You can buy obviously the full kit that's got all 5 packs in it, which is called Banana Split, or you can do just a double dip Sundae, which is just the 4 packs. But I always, whenever I do these videos, I like to do the 4 packs first before I do the 5th collection, because not everybody gets the full kit. So I'm going ahead and scored my card base, which is a craft card base. The craft cardstock does come in the kit. All of my cards today will also be top folding because it's my favorite. So I'm just going to eyeball that, and it's going to cover the entire front of the card base there. I'm going to add some liquid glue to the back of this and then put that into place. And you can see how card number 1 turned out. I absolutely love it. It's adorable. And like I said, I think it's my favorite out of all of 5 that I did. So we're now going to do card number 2. Card number 2 features the stamp set from Sunny Studio. And it's also got these papers in it. Now, of course, all of the papers that you get, they do vary. And so, some of the, like the ephemera pieces and the cardstock pieces or pattern paper pieces, sometimes they vary. So you won't get the exact same thing that everybody else gets, which I think is fine because you get a little bit of variety. But it also comes with this stencil in this pack. This is the, I believe it's called the dog bones, or bones stencil. And I wanted to use it in a little bit of a different way today. And so I'm going to take some of my distress inks and a couple of my ink daubers. And I've put the stencil at an angle. to give it an angled appearance, and just for something different. And I wanted to do these 3 colors here in the Distress ink. I was going to go for a little bit of a rainbow effect at first, but then I decided just to use 3 colors. But I am going to go in rainbow order. And I believe this is picked raspberry here. Then I've got squeezed lemonade, and I believe carved pumpkin is the orange color. But obviously any orange color or any inks that you want to use, you could use. I just like using my Distress inks because, obviously they're easy. I've got the small ink cubes, so they're smaller to put on my desk. And they blend so easily whenever you're blending colors together. Obviously, they're meant to blend together. So that's why I like to, whenever I'm doing any type of blending like this, I usually choose my Distress inks or Distress oxides. So I'm going to go ahead and add down the 3rd color here. After I get my orange, I'm going to add the yellow. And then you can see how well that's just, it's so bright and colorful and cheerful. So I did clean off my stencil off camera, and it's very easy to do. Just run that under the sink because it is Distress ink, and it just comes off real easily. Off camera, I did go ahead and stamp down this cute little dog image onto a piece of white cardstock, and then I die cut that with a stitched circle. And I also die cut a little bit of the pattern papers that I had in the kit to just kind of ground the image a little bit better, and it looks a lot better than just the dog hanging out in space there. So now I'm going to add my sentiment, and it does come, in pieces like this, so you can arrange it any way that you want. So I'm going to stamp that down. I decided the way I wanted to stamp down my sentiment, so I'm going to use the same Distress inks that I used before in my inking earlier, and I'm going to use that to do my sentiment. But I've arranged them in my MISTI just to get them arranged, so it would just make it easier. But I'm stamping them out one at a time, just so I could stamp them down twice, and there won't be any chance of me getting any ink on any of the sentiments. So, usually Distress inks aren't usually made for actual stamping. The Distress oxides are good for that, but the Distress inks themselves are not. So it's good to use your MISTI if you do have one, or any stamping positioning tool like that. And then now I'm going to add the 3rd part of my sentiment, and it says, birthday wishes and puppy dog kisses. Super cute. So I've got my whole entire main panel done there. Now I'm going to go ahead and add one of the little bone clips that came in the kit. I think you get 4 of these little bone clips, and it really does add to this overall puppy theme here. So just something different to add to your card design. But you could also use these for your journaling or really anything. I mean, the sky's the limit. You don't have to just stick with a certain thing. You could just use them for anything. So now I'm going to add my main stenciled piece to a piece of this pattern paper. I was deciding which way I wanted to use the front or the back, but I decided to go ahead with the bigger dot. So I've added that to that piece of pattern paper, and now I'm going to add some liquid glue, and then add this to my yellow card base, which comes in the kit. This is the banana split color. All of the colors, I did do an introduction to this card kit, and if I can think about it, I will go ahead and list it in the cards above. I go through all the contents of the kit. All of the cardstock that I'm using does come in the kit, and it's all from MFT except for the white. The white is the Nina 110-pound cardstock, I believe. It's, I think one of the more, it is one of the more popular cardstocks. I personally don't use this white cardstock on a daily basis, but it is a great cardstock, obviously, because there's lots of people that like it. I was going to add some of the sequins, but I decided not to, just to keep it the way it was, and I really do love how it turned out. So that is card number 2. Moving on to card number 3, we've got these, the Smitten Kitten collection from Doodlebug, and of course the ephemera pieces of these little kitty cats. So I didn't use any of the ephemera pieces because I'm going to save that for another project for myself later. But I did go ahead and use some of these pattern papers, and I did use one of the ones that have the extra, blocks of scenes and stuff. So I decided to use that to create my card, just to get some extra mileage from these pattern papers. And so I cut down one of the images. I'm kind of deciding what extra papers I wanted to use. So I decided to take some of these little sentiments that are on the pattern papers, and I cut it down. Now I'm just going to create a banner end on this one sentiment. It says, "You're the cat's meow." And I'm going to add this to another piece of the pattern paper that I've also cut down. And so it's basically a pattern paper card. But, that's the whole, great thing about these pattern papers that they've created like this, that you can use these as well, and you don't necessarily have to do any stamping. The only stamping I did was on the card base itself, and you'll see that here in just a moment. But I did cut down some of the papers and just kind of really utilizing all that I could and getting all the different patterns together, because obviously when they curate these pattern paper packs, they're meant to go together. So it gives you that extra mileage. And for those that are new beginners and don't have many stamps, this is a great way to create cards, and you still have a really cute card that you've created without any stamping. So I've put that down onto a piece of, I believe it's not sure the name of the blue cardstock, but it is coming from the kit. And I used a scalloped square die, rectangle die for that, to cut it down, just to give it a little bit of a decorative edge there. And I'm going to pop up my sentiment onto a piece of this extra pattern paper that I've also cut down that you could see there. I'm going to add some liquid glue to that and then place that down onto my main panel. This is going to be my focal point, of course. So I'm going to get that into place. I really love this. It's really cute. This you could obviously give this to any cat lover. And so now I'm going to decide on more pattern papers to cut down, and you can really see how it's all framed together. But I thought I wanted to add a little bit of a background, some texture to the background of my card base. So I got this little fish of bones image from the stamp set that comes in this collection here, and I'm just going to take the closest ink color that I could to the cardstock, and I'm just going to add a little bit of texture by stamping kind of around the perimeter of this, and it's very, very light, especially after it dries, but it gives it that extra something, and whenever you see it in the light, it's better than just having plain. To me, it kind of just bumps up the overall design. So I'm just going to add some liquid glue and adhere that to my card base. And I go ahead and add some sequins to this as well, because it is such a plain card in design. I wanted to add just the extra, since I do have the sequins in the kit, I wanted to add some extra bling to this. So I'm just going to add my liquid glue and then add this to the card base. Get that into place. Make sure it's really good and lined up before I really press down. Give a good crease to the card base at the top. And now I'm going to add some of those sequins. And these sequins really go well with the pattern papers. The colors actually match pretty perfect. So I just picked out 3 different ones. I don't really go too crazy with my sequins because I just find they're nice. They if you're mailing a card, they're a little bit difficult to mail, in my opinion. But that's why I kind of keep them to a minimum. But I went ahead and added 3 to this one, and you can see how that turned out there. Super adorable. So now we're going to move on to card number 4. And this card actually gave me some issues, but I got through it. So we're going to need to use the stencil that comes in this one. This is the paw print stencil, and this comes from Scrapping for Less. Both stencils are from Scrapping for Less. So I thought it would be fun to kind of mask off a portion of this stencil. And then I'm going to ink these paw prints up in this section that I'm masking off in rainbow order. For some reason, I'm, determined to do a rainbow order from a stencil. But I chose some of more distress inks. I kind of changed up the colors just a little bit. And then I'm going to go in rainbow order from the left corner up to the right hand corner a little bit. Not to the corner, of course, but just kind of up toward the, in a diagonal on this piece of white cardstock here. And it's going to give me that rainbow look to these paw prints. And I think it's just super cute. So it's real easy to do, especially if you've got ink daubers. These little images, I guess, on the stencil, on the opening of the stencil are very small. So I had to really press to get the ink in. But you can, you can really press hard and get a really good impression of the ink. So I didn't want to leave it the way it was. I wanted to add just a little bit more color at the bottom. So I'm just taking just a normal cheap, this is like literally a cheap makeup brush. I've done a actual tutorial using this makeup brush. It's been a while, but instead of using like an ink duster or whatever, you can just use a cheap makeup brush. This one is from the brand ELF, ELF. And you can probably find this at a dollar store or whatever, but it's just an alternative to one of those ink dusters, and it will save you money. And also it gives you that really soft inked effect on your background. And I really, really do love this. I mean, it's easy to apply, and it really does add to a little bit of softness to the background. So for my image, I did color it off camera like I've been doing, but I wanted to add afterthought. I wanted to ink that up, the background black. So I had to actually use some liquid mask, do some liquid masking, and I was kind of afraid to do it because it was the first time I've done it. But you can see that it turned out pretty decent for my first time. But I wanted it black because I think just black and rainbow just goes together. And since I did the inking on the white piece, the plain white cardstock of my colored image didn't really go well. So that's why I had to create the black background. So you could see that I already had a stamped down sentiment there. But so that's where I placed my colored image instead. And now I'm going to just re-ink my sentiment and stamp that down on below my inked piece here, or my colored piece. So I really do, I didn't think that it was going to turn out as good as it did, but overall it turned out just fine. So for card number 5, we're going to be using some of the dies in this kit, this collection here. And they've got all these little pieces. And so off camera, I took some of those dies and I impressed those dies into my cardstock. And it just leaves a really nice impression. And it's, something different than actually stamping images onto the background. And you can see that I've taken the kitty image from the stamp set that comes from Scrapping for Less, and I went ahead and colored it off camera. I did fussy cut it out. And so now I'm going to take some of the red cardstock that comes in a kit, and I just cut down a strip of it. I'm going to add it to my card base here. And then I'm going to also take some real small strips of the pattern papers that I had left over from another collection. And I'm going to add this to the, kind of make a border around the red piece. And it just kind of grounds it a little bit better and kind of gives it a finished edge. And then I'm going to add, doing this with liquid glue obviously is better than tape rendered, in my opinion, because you can move it and adjust it however you need to. So once I get those into place and I cut off the ends of the cardstock there, I'm just going to obviously cut it off flush. I got to kind of adjust my cardstock there a little bit. But I'm going to cut off my pieces, flush. And then I'm going to add my my little kitty image to this piece here, and then add my sentiment and from the stamp set. So, this one came together fairly quickly once I got the dies impressed into the cardstock. It came together fairly quickly. So, sometimes you can do, it's really great to have these options in these card kits like this, and it really pulls the card together, pretty quickly. Obviously, you've got to do the coloring of the image, but for the way I did my kitty here, it looks just like my kitty Daisy. So I usually don't color my cats like her, but you would think I would because it's the more simple. All you got to do is just add, different color dots. But anyway, so I'm going to pop this image up with some foam tape and then just take off the backings. And then once I get that done, I obviously went ahead and stamped down my sentiment. And it says, "You're fantastic." And I thought that went well with the kitty image since he's playing in the kitty bowl there, or the fish bowl. So I've got that done, and then I'm going to add a little bit of detail to the eyes with the glaze pen that comes in the kit. And so I had to let that dry a little bit first before adding the whites back into the eyes. So that's why I have the white of the pen. So once I have that, then it's all finished. Thank you all so much for watching my video today. I really truly appreciate it. Again, I will have all the details of the kit listed below in the description bar area. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd love to have you. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.